Okay, it says that we are live on YouTube.
Woohoo!
Okay, so, all right. Yep, I just got the notification even that we are live on YouTube. Okay. All right. So good morning, ladies. It's wonderful to see you all here again and being a part of this. I'm so glad that we are able to get together today. Today, we're going to be talking about dream interpretation, one of our all-time favorites. We do have a couple of very interesting dreams. I'm going to tell you right now, like this is going to be spectacular. So we want to kind of go around the room and introduce everybody so that our participating audience, whoever is listening, can know who we are, where we're at, and how they can get a hold of us, and a little bit about what it is we do. So Michelle, we're going to start with you. If you don't mind, we're going to have you just tell us a little bit about who you are.
Hi, I'm Michelle, a spiritual life coach. I love using the Akashic Records to help people release negative emotions, trapped blockages, trapped emotions that are creating patterns that they no longer want in their life. Right now, I'm on the road. The best way to get a hold of me is through my website at healingwithmichelleadams.com, or you can find me on Facebook at healingwithmichelleadams.com, or on Facebook at Healing with Michelle Adams.
Wonderful. Okay. And Cherry, if you want to tell us a little bit about you, you are muted, just so you know, there you go.
Okay. I'm Sherry Huss. I am a psychic medium, and I do a lot of like divination cards and the runes, a little bit of cartomancy, things like that. Basically, I try to help people get closure and heal from grief any way I can. So, and you can find me on Spirit Closure with Sherry on Facebook.
Wonderful. And Jennifer, tell us a little bit about you. And you're muted.
Hello. I'm still trying to get this shared out to YouTube. My name is Jennifer Lonberg. The easiest way to find me is on my website. I am constantly moving. So Michelle is in that situation right now for a little bit, but my husband and I travel all over, depending on where his jobs are. So we are currently in Arkansas. I think last time we were all together, I was in North Carolina. But it's super fun. I am a spiritual life coach, and I do trainings on all kinds of different things. I have Angels of Abundance course. I have a business course. I have a Divine Alchemy Academy, which is the bomb right now. So that is my newest, most exciting thing that I'm doing, is working with Divine Alchemy Academy. Other than that, everything's on my website, or Facebook is the best place to find me. Is she frozen? Can anybody else hear?
I don't know.
I'm like, all of a sudden she's frozen. She just dropped out. So I'm technologically challenged as well. I was trying to share this out and I still have not gotten that done, but I'm going to do that now. So Michelle, let's turn it back over to you, because it looks like she lost service for a second.
All right. So let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and just like, how many of you guys have done dream like interpretations? Or basically we're gonna do that today, but anyways, we kind of do more like using our intuition instead of the guided, like I know like this means this means this means this, because each one of us, as we go through this, and this has been the great thing that I have found out, that we each catch something different in each one of these dreams. And so intuitively we can go, the people can go, oh, wait a minute, I didn't think of that. I didn't think of that. Thank you. Because once they put it all together with all of our little different parts, it creates a whole. And so that is the thing about the dream interpretations that is way different with us in this group than a dream interpretator. Because they're going to go off of like maybe those scientific meanings on what an animal means, what this means, what this means. And here we just kind of go through of that intuition. Althea, you're back on.
I am. Yeah, I don't know what the heck happened. All I can hope is that I don't get caught in some weird position that I'm like, you know, the whole thing. So, okay, well, and I'm very, very thankful. Last Friday, I had major internet issues. The tower that I am on went down, and it took them all day to get that working. That was very discouraging. So, Okay, so we have a couple of dreams, so we're gonna start out, if you don't mind. Cherry, I know that you are still getting situated. Are you ready? Okay, you're muted.
I can talk. If you want me to just wait and call in, I can do that.
Okay. It's totally up to you. Actually, you're looking good right now and you got a really good connection, so
Okay,
you're clear.
we can just do that then.
Okay. All right. So this first dream that we have is a very short dream, but it's very interesting to me. I found it very fascinating when I read it. Okay, so the dream is, just so you know, Jennifer, we always submit names. So if there's any names in there, even of animals, I always just mark them out, okay? So the dream is, what I recall is that it was dark and I took this bag off the shelf by the door outside, as if it was a gargoyle keeping watch. I opened the bag to allow what was inside the bag to breathe. Then, just before light came, it went back into the bag. I closed up the bag and put it back on the shelf by the door. So these dreams are always very fascinating to me. These little short snippets, right? Like we get just a glimpse, right? And I always find these very, very, very fascinating, especially because it seems like there's so much detail in there. So Michelle, let's start with you. What is your take on this?
So my take on this here is like, when I was listening to it, it's like, what is this person hiding? Why do they feel like they need to hide? What is going on that who they really are can only come out at night, but yet they have to hide it during the day when everyone's looking. I thought that was really interesting. And then bringing it like outside or something, it was like, going, okay, what is like the big surrounding out there where it's like, okay, it's not in my house anymore, but we can breathe out here, we can look at things out here. But when you come back in, you have to hide yourself again. So it's still that, you know, not being two different people or two different things and having that dual life.
Yeah, this one is, there's just there's a lot of things going on in this particular one. Cherry, what are your thoughts on that?
My thought is, you know, I keep my keys like right by the door. Everything important to grab real quickly. I almost feel like this is something that they purposely take out of their bag of tools mentally or spiritually as they go out into the world, maybe, but they just keep that very compartmentalized and they only, it almost feels like it wants to come out more and not be hidden, but it feels like it's safer inside of a contained space than, like Michelle said, out in the big world. And it feels like maybe it's wanting to be seen more often and not just in, you know, in the shadows.
Interesting. Jennifer, what is your take on this?
Okay, so I'm just gonna lay this out there. First of all, I don't do dream interpretations. Like I'm like, no, I told Michelle this morning, I'm like, I don't do dreams. Like that's not my wheelhouse whatsoever. Because I feel like sometimes dreams are just like our brain dumping a bunch of crap that we just don't need anymore. So I would say if you have a dream and you're like, that was weird, but it doesn't feel like you need to hold on to it, then just let it go. It's okay. But if you have a dream that literally is impacting you where you're like, you remember all the details, then maybe jot it down and be like, okay, what is this really meaning to me? The only thing that I was hearing when you guys were talking about that is like, not letting the cat out of the bag, right? Like, so what are you trying to hide? And especially since it's in the dark. So that's what I would say as far as like the energy with what I'm feeling around it is what is that the whoever's having this dream, like they want to let it out, but only when it's safe, like under, you know, when it's secluded and safe and nobody can really see it. And then they put it back before I mean, who's in the house, right? Like there's so many missing pieces. So I would say if you have this dream again, see what other details come through. And you can always set an intention, right? Like before you go to bed, say, okay, well, this dream really kind of shook me, or this dream really is still impressing on me. And what, like, if there's a message in this, like, let me get it tonight. Let me get more details so that I can piece it all together to see if there's something that needs to come through on it.
Well, and I think that is right, because it is very fascinating. I want you to think back to about when you started discovering your gifts. This is what this dream kind of symbolizes to me, is that this person is dreaming about kind of coming into their own. I mean, at first when we start hearing, seeing, feeling, there's this check of reality of like, okay, am I insane? Am I going crazy? And then when you tell somebody, you're like, oh, what are your thoughts? Because, when you're discovering this kind of stuff, it's like, it's not every day that somebody's like, I had a conversation with dead grandma yesterday, and she was sitting right there, only it didn't look like her anymore. She looked like a very young version of her, so coming into our own is a very peculiar thing. And so some of this it just kind of took me back to kind of like, this is a starting point for somebody, because as you start to understand and grow and experience and talk and find other like-minded people that can help you understand and support, then it is kind of like putting it back in the bag and kind of holding it off a little bit, until it is a safe environment. I thought it was very interesting, the word breathe in there. Did you guys not? I mean, whether it's a breath of fresh air, whether it's a breath of relief, that kind of stuff, I think those key things are like, you just kind of keep breathing till you find your footing. I just find those short dreams just very, very interesting. Okay, so are you guys ready for the next one?
Yeah.
Okay, this one is I'm going to kind of give a heads up on this one because it is a little bit graphic and kind of dark, okay? Just the words and descriptions that are there. So just, all right. So in this dream, there's 4 of us standing there. I know that the intent of what we're going to be doing is killing my father. Okay. This I'm gonna just kind of give you the heads up now. Okay. So as we are sitting there waiting for my dad to return, I noticed that he is outside of the house. He has a deer on the back of his pickup, and him and a friend are cutting this deer apart. As they start hauling the deer into the house, I let the people know that the plan of killing my father is not going to happen. This is not going to work. This is not going to happen. One of the people that were in the cahoots with me was very, very angry. They got so mad that they didn't attack my father, but they attacked my father's friend. And that's when I woke up. So this one is kind of curious to me because I'm like, how interesting. So Cherry, we're going to start off with you first. What are your thoughts on this particular dream?
Naturally, you start with me first. I'm still contemplating, like, So, gosh, when I did ministry, fathers always represent, like, that's where we get our identity from. Kind of our idea of what masculinity looks like, our safe person in the world. And the fact that they're trying to kill that, I'm wondering if they're not re-examining some of their values as like who they are as a person, like their identity, maybe if there's not something that their father taught them or some aspect of that person that they don't want to really identify with as strongly, perhaps, if they're stepping away from that, maybe. And the fact that they attacked the dad's friend, who would be someone very dear to him, and they were participating in a very masculine thing. Because that would be food for the family and all of that, like what they're offering to the family for nourishment and everything. That's tough. I just think that I don't know. Deer to me is like graceful, and so I have no idea with this one. I really truly don't. I'm grasping at straws at the moment. But the fact that they're trying to kill the dad's friend instead, to me, is just killing something that's maybe masculine and or toxic masculine. I don't know.
Mm. That's an interesting phrase, a toxic masculinity energy. That is very, very curious to me. Why Michelle is trying to reconnect with us, Jennifer, do you want to go ahead? What's your insight on this one?
So the only thing that I was getting, I do know that like death or dying in a dream is usually like the end of a relationship. So like, for example, when somebody's kid goes to college, sometimes you'll have that dream, right? Because they're leaving, it's a different kind of relationship, it's an ending cycle. So it's not always about like actually physically somebody dying, but where it comes into killing the father instead of dying, I would say that the first impression I got was misdirected emotions and resentment that's buried that can't come out in a different way. Um, because I feel like there's a lot that we could be upset about right now, and there's a lot of restrictions that like dads put, like this is the law, these are the rules of the house, this is what you got to do. So if you're frustrated with that, just knowing what's going on in the world right now with all of the restrictions and all of the, you have to follow these rules and all of those kind of things, it could really be that coming out emotionally in a dream like that, if it was that, because it's that impressive, right? Like you can feel the energy of the dream as you're talking about it. So I would say because they went to the other guy instead of the dad, it's like a misdirection of emotions and resentment. So that's probably where I would interpret that a little bit, what I'm feeling from that.
That is so interesting because you're right. It is, the intention was this, and then they changed it at the last minute, and so I think that is a lot to do with it. Michelle, I know that you were kind of having some struggles connecting there for a second.
Yes.
Were you able to hear it?
Not all of it, just bits and pieces.
Okay. So the dream is that there is 4 guys together, and the intent is that they're going to kill the father. And as they're waiting for the father, they notice the dad outside with the deer on the back of the truck, and a friend and him are cutting it open. As they start bringing it in, the guy lets the friends know that they're not going to kill the dad. One of the gentlemen get very mad, and they stab and kill the friend, attack the friend.
That is a really interesting dream going on there, because like the 4 guys, so balance came up, and then needing to release that balance with ending one of them. And then the dad, they're thinking the dad was just the father figure, the king of the household, the one who knows all. And then they're like, because he brings in the food, because he's also the provider, they're like, no, we're not going to do that. So instead, someone decides to off somebody who is less important in that group. Because no matter what, that life had to be off balance for some reason. And so you can look at each 4 of those guys as like a leg out of a table. And then when one comes off, the table falls. So why did they need that hierarchy, the family unit, that balance to collapse? What is it that they're wanting to rebuild?
Interesting. This is very fascinating to me. When I first read this one, I was like, wow, this is a choice dream. Like you have a choice that is going to be that you're starting to make plans to go in a certain direction, and you're going to get to a choice point. Like, and you're going to have to decide which way do you go? Because, I mean, planning to do something like this, we all have plans, to go out shopping or to go in this direction or to go in that direction. And sometimes we've all been stopped in mid-direction and having to choose another direction in a split second. I thought this dream, was very interesting, that it was like, looks like you probably better be aware of what choices you're making that is getting you to a point where you're going to have to literally choose between good and evil. Like this is because a life will depend on it. That's what I kind of took it as, maybe not as critical as a life depending on it, but choosing between good and evil sometimes can represent, yeah, it is that important. It's very curious to me, these short little dreams, because of the plain fact that it's like there's a lot of detail in them. And so it's very curious to me. Would any of you tell this person that had this dream that they need to work on daddy issues? Just raise your hand if you would. Nobody.
I'm going to say, I don't know if it would be that, because there's so many things that a father figure, right, could represent. So I would say maybe you were just upset with somebody for the day. Maybe it's not that big of a deal, but if it comes back around, or if the dream is hanging on to you throughout the entire day, like if you can't shake it off, then I would say there's definitely something there to work on. But because dreams are a lot of symbology as well, like it may not even have anything to do with that man. It may be the man, it may be a man, it may be, there's so many different things it could be.
I just find it so interesting. I kind of, when I heard they were like, do you think it has anything to do with daddy issues? I'm like, I wouldn't take it as that, but
No.
it never hurts to work on them, right? So this is very fascinating to me. All right, so are you ready for the final one? Okay.
Yeah. Can I say that I'm nervous?
Okay, so this one is rather interesting, okay? So the dream starts out that there was a desert scene. There's two people in there. In the middle of my hands, I beheld a little gold ball. In this ball, there was little lights, and whenever we went a good direction, the ball would start glowing blue. Now, it wasn't just any sort of a blue, it was one that would light up by little bars going around like a timer, okay? First of all, I think it's fascinating when anybody can see the color in a dream. I've always find that very fascinating. As long as we were going on what seemed to be quests, every time we would get a quest right, then the ball would glow blue and would get brighter. Whenever we would start varying off the course, this ball would start shaking and vibrating, and the color of blue would dissipate. Very.
Do we know if that's a man or a woman that had that dream?
It was a woman having the dream.
Okay.
Now, this is very, very fascinating to me, because it's like I said, whenever there's a dream that you can see the color, I always find that very fascinating. So, Jennifer, let's start with you to this one.
Okay. So as far as the dream, the one thing that I would say about a desert is that they're thriving through something that is desolate, right? Like they may feel, but things can still thrive in that. The only thing that I'm getting as far as the impression of going into the left, knowing if this is a woman, I would say that they're being guided to really go deeper into the feminine essence. Blue to me would be like water, Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, feminine energy, allowing yourself to flow in that. And as women, I think a lot of us have been, we can't, most of us here came from the 80s with the shoulder pads, and you had to be a man and work as hard as they did and all that kind of crap. And it's that we're now allowing ourselves to come back into the feminine flow and what that's a little bit more like. And so that maybe they're saying it's okay to go into this flow. It's okay to allow yourself to be in that flow a little bit more. That's just kind of what I'm getting.
How interesting.
And I have a question for you after everybody else goes.
Okay. All right, Michelle, what are your thoughts?
So I was getting is that golden ball was actually their intuition. And so when they were listening to it, everything felt good. It felt normal. It felt right. And then when they chose not to, like they would get that nervous twitch in their stomach, and that's where it like vibrated wrong or whatever else. And that's just showing them, hey, this is what it feels like when you're off your course. This is what it feels like when you're on your course. Because when we first learn to use our intuition and to go within our bodies to make our decisions, this is what happens when we make decisions that are what if we're not going within. You know, we'll get that little twitch, that little nervousness, that, oh, that was not okay. I need to correct. And what I got was that golden ball was their intuition that they were practicing to using to help grow that so they can make decisions within their own bodies.
How fascinating. This dream, I don't know whether it maybe has bothered me or stayed with, I don't want to say necessarily bothered, but I have contemplated this dream more than any other dream that I have read so far. I find it just every aspect of it just very, very fascinating. Cherry, what are your thoughts on there?
That reminded me of a scripture story from this church I grew up in years ago. And it was a liahona. It was an instrument that was divinely given to guide them, I think, through the wilderness or the desert. That took me back till I was like 9 or 10. So to me, it's divine guidance. Like Michelle said, intuition for sure, especially the color. I love the fact that she hit on, I think it was Jennifer, that hit on Mother Mary energy and all of that, because divine feminine is kind of, to me, associated with intuition. And when we're aligned with our intuition and what we know is best for us, we're divinely guided more so, I believe, than if we just kind of meander through the dry places on our own and not ask for help. And we get that yucky feeling and those bad experiences compared to, I can't imagine what I'm trying to say. We're not, in other words, it's an easier path if we live in our intuition and trust it than if we're outside of that. It's just a harder trip for us, and we kind of lose that guiding light inside of us, and we have to find it again to stay centered and on our path.
Well, and I think it is very fascinating because, and I think that I found it very interesting that everybody's response is kind of the same, like pay attention to what's going on, because, as you're moving in one direction, it's growing, it's moving along. But as soon as you start veering off course, then it starts, and I can just see this person like, I don't know what we're doing wrong, and then, oh, okay, now we're back on normal, and so how many times do we as individuals wish we really did have that strong impression that when we were veering off the course, we would receive a confirmation that it's like, you're off course, and as long as you're doing the things and doing the right things, because I think that's important, as you choose to increase intuition, you have to be prepared for the consequences or the results of acting on said intuition, and not acting on it can be just as devastating. So I found that to be very interesting. Okay, so Jennifer, you said you had a question about that one.
Well, no, I just have a question about why it's fascinating that dreams are in color, because I always I'm like, wait, I want to know, I want to learn more about dreams. Like, I always dream in color. I didn't know that you didn't dream in color.
How fascinating. Okay, so maybe I have this wrong, but from what I understand is that, but it makes sense too. Okay. So most of the time when we're dreaming in black and white, it's to represent the pure facts of it. That's one of the reasons why we dream in black and white, is to just get the fact of what we're trying to learn, understand, grow, develop, that kind of thing. When we start dreaming in color, sometimes color has a way of hiding or masking a truth, perhaps. And that's just what I have understood it to be. Other people say that when you dream in color, it means that you are highly intuitive, that you are highly tuned in, and things like that. Other opinions may vary. Michelle, what are your thoughts?
I don't know. I dream in color most of the time. I didn't realize that most people don't.
That's what I was like. I had no idea that you didn't dream in color. I thought everybody dreams in color.
Oh, that's very interesting to me. Most all of my dreams have been in black and white.
That's so
mean,
wild to me.
It looks like
Yeah.
the film of a black and white, like those old time photographs that they recreate. It's like that. It's like you can see the truth and you can see the faults in it.
So weird because so when I dream, it's like being in a movie theater with 3D. Like it's just like it's happening. Like it's so weird. And I don't dream very often, but when I remember them, it's like I just was part of whatever the experience was. So very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look up about dreams in color because
Yeah,
that's
me too,
really
though, 'cause
cool.
it's like-
I'm like, I have some stuff to research here.
I dream in color, and it's like I'm in this movie, and it's really cool. And I know that if I remember the dream as I'm waking up, there's a specific reason why I need to relook at it.
Mhm.
And I never even think of adding colors or anything to it because my dreams are always in color.
How interesting. Sherry, what is your take on the color in black?
Well, I know for me, if I have a dream and I'm sitting in a movie theater and the curtains open and it starts playing, it's usually in color. But those are the dreams that I know now to really pay attention to because something's playing out in my life that I'm not paying attention to, that I'm too close to, that I need to step back and see the big picture. But color is, I've always been told that color is, once, like you said, intuitive people dream in color, but it's also, so when you have a dream, you think about what stood out. And if you remember, like, this guy had a yellow shirt on, and that's what I remember the most, you kind of have to think about what that color represents to you and what it means to you and how it makes you feel. Whereas black and white, I don't dream in black and white, so I really don't even know how to talk to that, other than it seems to me that that would be kind of stark facts that are trying to come out, maybe, because that's how I would take it if it was me. But I don't know. I just know colors do have special meaning in dreams, and
Mhm.
you can kind of research that a little bit more and then also go within your own intuition with it.
Well, okay, so as fun, I had a dream, okay? And I'm going to tell you this dream because I remember it that clearly. I was 11 years old when I had this dream, okay? This was very peculiar and so this kind of, I guess really what set the parameters for how I dreamed literally after that. So I was over at my sister's house, my oldest sister's house, and I'd spent the night at her house. And I started going into this dream where I walked through this door, not into it, walked through this door, and there was this man standing there. Now, this man was absolutely gorgeous. I mean, like my divine picture of what, whatever. I was just like, wow. Now, he offered me his hand, and I took his hand. And I looked down immediately and I seen that I was in this beautiful gown. Like I've always been fascinated with Southern belle dresses. Like this gown was like, I was so excited. But when I took his hand, I didn't feel anything. I felt cold. I felt nothing. And when he smiled at me, I'm just like, oh my gosh, his smile is just so gorgeous. He says, come with me. I have something to show you. So I was letting him lead me through, and I was looking around the place, and there was black roses everywhere. And some of them they looked like they just got cut and was placed in the vase. Now, as we walked to this window, there was these French doors that he opened up, and it was like the perfect, I don't know, movie caption where the wind just come through and the white lace curtains flowed in the breeze. Now, I remember standing out on the balcony wearing this dress, and I remember thinking, wow, this is such a magnificent sight. although I have no idea what I was looking at. It was black, but I could see whatever it was I was looking at and was like, wow, this is absolutely amazing. As I turned around, he looked in my eyes and he's like, Althea, all of this can be yours. So that's when I woke up. Now, here's the creepy part of the dream, and this is why I remember it so well, is when I woke up, I found myself looking at a mirror on the wall, and in the mirror, I could see that man standing at the foot of the bed. When I turned to look at the foot of the bed, he was not there. I didn't go to sleep for the rest of the night. I will confess, like I think it was like 3:30 in the morning when I woke up and had this, but that dream has stayed with me ever since. Like that was just, well, kind of creepy. But what it represented to me was lots of things. So I'm kind of curious, what are your takes on that one? 11 years old, still remember every detail of it. Michelle, what are your thoughts?
That's an interesting one. So it's interesting that it has the mirror in it, because mirrors is a gateway. For some people think that it's like a vision to beyond the veil. And that's why actually Catholics will cover the mirrors in a house when somebody passes, so the soul cannot escape through the mirror. So I found that was interesting, that it was the mirror that you were seeing this vision through. So I also found it was really interesting that when you touch his hand, it was cold, like he was cold. Because you're like going, oh my God, he's so dreamy, and you're expecting this warm embrace. So when it was cold, you're like, okay. So it's also telling me that don't always be attracted to what somebody looks like. Right. There's always that underlining thing of who they really are. So allow them to show them to you first. Especially at age 11, when you're kind of going, ooh, are boys cute, boys not cute? Do they still have cooties? Do they no longer have cooties? You know, you're going through that phase. And then, you know, when you're looking at this big, beautiful picture, but it's dark, you really cannot see anything, but you can feel it. But yet, it almost feels like you're feeling off of what he looked like and not the energy he was giving you.
Interesting.
Because the energy when you touch his hand that he was giving you was very cold, very aloof.
Yeah. Like there was like, if I hadn't seen myself touching his hand, I wouldn't have known that I was touching his hand. That's how weird it was. Like that was very distinct. Cherry, what are your thoughts on that one?
There we go. I couldn't get unmuted. I'm sorry. I instantly thought spirit guide or angel. I work with angels in my practice. Typically, they are very, 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 very beautiful. That are a spirit guide. The fact that cold would represent someone that's on the other side to me, rather than, you know, like a warm body here. But also the fact that the portal was there, kind of like the mirror, like the image of what you're seeing. The white curtains, you know, it's just like the perfect day, like the perfect situation. But then you have these black roses, you know, and typically black roses are something that we equate now with like revenge, or, you know, you send somebody black roses you don't like. But it just almost, I almost wonder if it's not like kind of like a double message, almost like people that look too good to be true can really be cold, and everything can look perfect in their lives. But if you really pay attention to the details, there's things that are amiss that you'll start picking up on, and you'll realize, you know, if things look good but they feel cold to you, or if there's a coldness about them, if there's a if there's just a real perfect situation, but there's one thing that just doesn't set right, which black roses, like why in the heck would it be in a situation like that? You'd think like white roses or pink roses, or black is kind of the absence of color and then the coldness. I almost wonder if you weren't dealing with somebody in your class, that maybe you kind of liked, that was kind of cold to you, perhaps. I don't know. And maybe you were just kind of an 11-year-old wishing for that attention and wishing for that. I don't want to say popularity, but that's maybe what it feels like a little bit. Because at 11, that's kind of very important thing to girls. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. There wasn't any boys though. I don't think
that guy.
Yeah,
That you said
like
was really beautiful.
for his representative of school and things like that. Heck yeah. I mean, because it's really funny how those popularity that you want to belong, you want to be a part of, and all that stuff really is kicking in. So yes, that would be approximately that time. Yeah. Jennifer, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm gonna go way more basic and just ask, were you like in Sunday school at the time? Because that's a Bible story.
Oh, is it?
I mean, it's very similar to like when, and this is not to make it dark, but when the devil's like, here, Jesus, you can have all this, and Jesus is like, what? Like, are you like, he didn't respond to it. He was like, no, I don't need any of that. I don't. And besides that, God, it's all God's anyway, but it's besides the point. So like, to me, it's like, he's showing you all this stuff that's beautiful, but there's no substance to it. So I was like, maybe in Sunday school that week you heard about that story and then you transferred it into a dream. I don't know. That was kind of where my mind went, but.
Well, and it is fascinating because, we see all sorts of movies like that portray that exact story. And we went to church, but I never paid attention really. I mean, I knew the basic story of Jesus, that kind of stuff, was not real churchy or anything like that. I found it very interesting that at 11 years old, a person could have such a significant dream, because that's really, it really does represent a lot. Like, pay attention to who you are around, pay attention of who you let in your life, pay attention to the feelings that you receive, so it was like, that was very like matter of factual. And I like when dreams are blunt like that leave kind of like, they're
Was that
really
one
like,
also in black and white too?
yes.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, it was completely black and white. Like, when I think back to that particular thing, like I remember the color of his eyes. They were black, but they had the whites. I could see the whites. When he smiled, the whitest teeth ever, and you could tell that he had, he wasn't like completely pale like I was. He looked like he did have some sun, because he was a little bit darker than I was. But the dress, like, I remember, like, it was absolutely gorgeous. Like, there was so much in that dream that was like, very fascinating. And, like I said, the part that freaked me out, and I think that kind of incorporated that dream into my entire being, was the fact when I woke up, I was looking in the mirror and could see him stand at the edge of the bed. I'm like, ah! That was the freaky part. But
maybe it was a past life memory, and like some rich guy wanted you to marry him and you didn't really think you didn't have any feelings for him, but he could have given you a bunch of stuff. It could be simple too. Like,
that is
Right?
Yeah, oh, that would have been. Isn't it funny though, the temptations and things that we get offered, but that increased in awareness, I think at such a young age, also kind of kept me, I guess, on the right side of the line just a tad bit. Michelle knows about that. It's really funny because it's like, it really is just a hairline that can cause you to go one way or the other. It really is that close. And so when we look at those kind of things, like, it's always very fascinating to me, like the different things that we have in our life that happen, and why do we dream? Like, Are we so overloaded that our subconscious really does have to release? Or is it that we're really trying to understand new programs and open up our brain waves just a little bit more to increase that capacity to learn and understand? Dreams are always very fascinating to me. And of course, there's a bazillion books of dream interpretations, and everything like that. There's also those dreams that are meant strictly as well, as you people know, the ones that are a little more sensitive, that have been working diligently at increasing their intuition. It's amazing the dreams that come through that are direct, like this is going to happen or this is not going to happen, and we get that little tidbit of insight. And so how do those kind of dreams affect how you practice your work? Sherry, let's start with you. How do dreams, when you have point blank dreams, how do they help you increase your work?
I've actually had dreams where my grandparents, like I'm in heaven and the colors are not of the colors on this in this world at all. Like I couldn't describe them if I tried. The closest thing I could describe it to is that What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams. What that kind of looked like. But they had messages for me. Like my grandparents would be at this big banquet like picnic table in a field of wildflowers and stuff, and they're like, oh, we've been waiting for you, we've saved your place and we've been waiting for you. And I realized that all of my grandparents were very, very spiritual. They were religious, but they were very in tune with the spirit. Other times I've had dreams where I believe it to be spirit guides, where somebody's just quietly watching me, and then I'll get a reading from somebody and they'll describe that person that I saw in my dreams. So they definitely point you in the right direction. Sometimes I get direct downloads. Sometimes I get a solution to problems, especially if I go to bed with I don't remember who said it, with the intention of, getting messages from spirit.
Very
You have
fascinating.
set the intention for sure at bedtime. And, there's people that put lavender or I can't remember, mugwort under their pillow to help with dream recall and more vivid dreams.
Interesting. Jennifer, how does it help you?
I don't work with I really don't. I'm like, this is just all fun for me. I don't really work with dreams. I don't dream enough to be able to do that. And I feel like the one thing that I think is going to be really interesting, I did an interview with Dr. Michael Lennox a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about dreams, and it was a fascinating conversation. The one thing that I didn't get to ask him about that I would love to ask about is, to me, I can definitely tell you the difference of if I had a dream or if I had astral travel or if I had a visit. Like, to me, they are not all dreams. They are all different.
Mhm.
So like when Sherry was saying that she went to and saw her grandparents, I would feel like that was a visit, but depending on how it was, it could have been a dream as well. But I feel like that's something, especially with everybody awakening the way that they are, with all of us moving into 5D and this awakening to these senses that maybe people haven't experienced in the past. Like, I think it's going to be important to be like, was that a dream? Was that astral travel? Was that, a visit from somebody? Like, what was that, if you recall it that much? But I don't work with dreams. I know some people, the only tip that I can give you that I got from Michael Lennox is, if you want to know what your dreams are, to journal every morning before you get out of bed. Like, as soon as you wake up, journal down whatever it was, and then watch for themes that come up over and over. Like a one-off dream that's just kind of weird, and you shake it off, probably doesn't have that much. That was just the psychological dump of all this stuff, whether you've seen a movie or whatever that kind of got you anxiety, or, because if you watch high intensity movies, you can have that. But so it could be just that. But then if you're looking at dreams and there seems to be a pattern or a theme or something like that, then it would maybe make more sense. But I would also add to that, is it a dream? Is it astral travel? Or was it a spiritual visit?
That's good. Michelle, what are your thoughts on that?
So, I mean, I don't actually, like, a lot of times with my clients, we'll talk about dreams. Because when we're bringing back soul fragments, their dreams really help me to identify whether or not they were able to reattach those spoke fragments back to them or not. Other than that, I don't use dreams that much in my business. So it's only for that specific purpose and only for those specific clients that are in that program. As for me, it's like, I know that I dream a lot, but if I'm remembering the dream, there's a specific thing that I need to look at.
How interesting.
But I do have visits, I do have astral travels, and I do have prophet dreams. Or visions, I should say. And I know the difference between them all. So there's mornings I wake up and going, oh, that's something that's going to happen yet. And I just let it go.
Yeah. Well, I find it just fascinating how all of these tools, I mean, it really is about awakening right now. And I mean, there's even people, I don't know, I've heard from similar people that do what we do and different things like that, that they're getting new talents. The things are starting to come more clearly, you know, they're picking up faster. And I find it very fascinating because, you know, there's times when we, you know, as we're going through and we're learning and we're growing ourselves, like it's amazing. Like we think that, oh my gosh, this is something new. And you talk with somebody and they're like, no, that's been, you know, that's already happened. And you're like, wow, so am I not going fast enough? You know? So here's the couple of things that I think all of us can agree on, and I think everybody else would too. Whenever you awaken, it always happens at the time that is right for you. This is something that I think is very peculiar and very, very personal, because of the plain fact that if you rush it, sometimes it can be a miscommunication and you may learn something wrong, if that's the correct term. Most of the time when we start awakening, it's because we're ready for that new information. New information, I don't think is just poured down your throat like a funnel. I think it is sometimes, it can come in different forms, but it's also taking the time to make sure you're understanding all of that information that's coming through correctly. One of the things that I work with is that I don't like to channel, and because I think they get pushy. I think that they get really pushy when you allow them to start giving messages and everything like that. So I don't like to do that because I think, one, they just are like blah, 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 because they've got so much to say and they want to share so much. And I think, no, you can take your time because one, I have to make sure that I'm getting the information right. Two, it's all about, you know, just making sure that you understand the growth as it's happening. I think all of us have those moments where we're like, whoa, okay, that was mind blowing. And all of us have those moments of, I'm excited because I think I caught a glimpse of what's next. And I think that's where a lot of people are just excited to be. And so there's a lot of people that are waking up right now that are like, well, why don't I know all this yet? And then there's other people who seem to be way advanced. And you're like, huh, did I get that? I didn't get that scroll. No, you know? So and this will kind of bring us to our closing. What are some tips for people that are waking up? What would you, just a couple of things that they could do from each one of you. What would you advise them to do? Michelle?
Take your time and just relax. Allow each moment to be what it is.
Okay. Sherry?
Meditation. I go to YouTube, and whatever I'm wanting to work on, I just type that in and kind of scroll down until something resonates, and I listen to it, and it usually helps. The frequencies are different.
Very good. Jennifer?
Sorry, I had my mute on. So the one thing that I always tell everybody is the first thing right off the bat, if you just want to learn psychic development, like, I'm not going to be your gal for that because all of this stuff of being open to our psychic awareness, our psychic development, the spiritual gifts that we have, all of those things, you still have to be human, right? So you still have to look at everything from a whole perspective. So first of all, stop judging yourself, stop comparing. Because if you're in comparison mode, then you're not in divine energy anyway, because everybody's going at their own pace. Everybody's in divine timing. There should be no comparison. We're all at different levels so that we can all help each other, right? So that's the first thing. And then I always tell people, look at your life as a whole package. You've got to look at physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and then galactic energy, because that's a thing now. I had to add galactic energy like 3 years ago, because we used to just look at the 4 places. We looked at spiritual, mental, physical, and emotional, but you have to look at the galactic energy now that's coming into the planet. So those 5 pillars are where you need to, and you have to bring that into a whole complete package, because if you're awakening and all of a sudden you have these gifts, but you're not taking care of your physical body, you're going to wear yourself out, or you're going to get spiritual flu because you're upgrading too fast and you're not drinking enough water, or you know what I mean? Like, or you're going to be having these experiences and you're going to be like, oh my God, I'm losing my mind, I'm going crazy. And then you're going to have this emotional reaction, and so you've got to look at all of that. You've got to look at all 5 pillars and bring that together. And as you ascend, all of that upgrades with it.
Very fascinating. Well, I think it's just wonderful that everybody is here and willing to share. That I think is so awesome, because there is still so much to learn for everybody. We're all still learning, and I think it is great. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle, but next Friday, we're going to be doing and talking about shadow work. Is that right?
Yes.
Oh, you want to tell us a little bit about what's going to be happening next Friday?
So yeah, we'll be talking about shadow work, and shadow work is that looking into our dark selves. So it's that part of us that we all want to not to admit that's there, but really it's always there. And a lot of us at times were taught how to bypass it and pretend it's not there, and you kind of just look for the positive. Well, when we realize with shadow work is that we're just looking at and bringing love to that darkness within us. So that way it will actually go away on its own.
Nice. I'm looking forward to that conversation. I am. I'm hoping that everybody's going to be able to join us next Friday too. And like always, we do the dream interpretation on the first Friday of the month. And
Yes.
so if you do have dreams that you would like to just kind of run by and get the different perspectives, then go ahead and you can message them to any of us that are here in the group, and we'll make sure that we get them read. So thanks everybody for joining us today, and thank you guys for being here, and congratulations on everybody making it.
Can I add something really, really quick too?
Yes.
The other thing, all of us on this call, all 4 of us, however many of us are here today, we all don't go through this alone. Connect with us on social media, find our communities, get in the Facebook groups, because awakening is not something that is fun to do on your own. And so you don't have to do this alone. That would be the other big tip I would give. Which is why we're doing what we're doing, right? So that people can have open conversations, and just, you don't have to do it alone, because we've been there.
Right.
That's why we all joined up together.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, ladies, until next Friday, it's great seeing all of you. And then we're going to stop the recording.